if Penn State gets into the championship, they will get, or in the playoffs, they'll get annihilated if they get like a real team.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and on today's Throwdown Thursday edition, we discuss Week 7 of the college football season. Segment 1, we'll do Power 4. Segment 2, we'll do Group of 5. And Segment 3, we will talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only, and I was not entertained Week 7. So let's jump in. SEC, good wins by Texas. You got a quarterback problem. LSU with the good win, and man, go Vanderbilt. Go Diego. Diego Pavia is killing it. Lackluster performances by Georgia, Alabama, and you were almost about ready to move that day if you lost, and Tennessee, and bad loss by Ole Miss. With us today, our favorite team leader, Mike King. Mike, SEC, what's on your mind, sir?
I mean, Texas can destroy Oklahoma, who is ranked, 18, and they could destroy him with their backup quarterback because Arch Manning should be the quarterback. He's a first-round pick this year. He's not good enough to be the quarterback. I mean, what did he do? 190 yards, 20 for 29. Nothing wasn't good. He was okay. In a 34-3 win, he was okay. So Texas is, for me, that's the story. But they got to look inward and decide, okay, we just saw what Arch can do. How short should the leash be?
Yeah, so I want to get your thoughts on this. Texas plays Georgia next week. I think Alabama plays Tennessee. I believe that's the matchup. We'll solidify that in segment 3 if I'm wrong. We're now eliminating people now because one-loss teams, yeah. But how many two-loss teams do you think the committee's going to take from the SEC when there ain't but 12 going? Any thoughts about a two-loss SEC team and what's the criteria? Because when Texas plays Georgia, if Texas wins, they're in. But if Georgia wins, man, we've got a problem. What do you think?
So one thing last year showed us is every team is an injury away from the committee just saying, you know what, screw it, you're out anyway. So I think Texas next week, they lose, they're fine, one loss, like you said. But we're going to have matchups of these one-loss teams next week. Potentially, if you get to that second loss, you're at the very least you are firmly on the bubble, and it's not like the basketball bubble where you kind of have an idea who they're going to take and we have no idea what they're going to do this year.
Nice.
So you don't want to put yourself on any bubble because you have no idea how. Maybe they want to be real progressive and have all these one-loss small conference schools in this year. Maybe. We have no clue. So SEC 3 guarantee, 4 is a huge question mark. But then they could go the other direction and take 5, and we'd be sitting here going, what are we doing? We have no idea. We know that 3 is a lot. I think they'll go 4. I think they'll take 4 SEC because SEC is the premier conference.
They are the premier conference. But
then we'll start doing the math when we get to the Big Ten, and we'll go, wait a second. Can they take 4? Because Big Ten could get 3 to 4, and then do they have the we have no idea.
All right, and great segue. So Big Ten, good win by Oregon. That tough game, and you handled your business. Northwestern came to the DMV, left with a solid, strong victory. Iowa keeps winning. Wisconsin woke up, and Minnesota, what are y'all doing getting these W's? Lackluster performance by Penn State. And we'll have that conversation. And Illinois, man, we got to be better. In my opinion, bad loss by Maryland, bad loss by Rutgers, bad loss by UCLA. What are your thoughts on the Big Ten this week?
So, I mean, Penn State won because Big Ten officials wanted Penn State to win because they want to have an extra team in the discussion because of what we just said. There's no other way to say it. We could, on the last drive that USC had in overtime, there was a holding and a pass interference that were just obvious. And you're at USC and it's obvious and not even a hint of a whistle. And in the first half, they were helping Penn State out. With what was the call they kept making where they had no idea? Oh, it was a low block. these low blocks for 15-yard penalties where the Penn State guy was diving low into the guy blocking him, and the guy hit him up high, and then the guy left. So that happened twice. So they were helping Penn State win. This was a Penn State win. They're playing a average team. They got the win. They're 6-0, and they'll play Ohio State, which is not a good Ohio State, and they'll still probably lose. If Penn State gets into the championship, they will get, or in the playoffs, they'll get annihilated if they get like a real team. That being said, I will say, watching that game, their offensive coordinator, he was great. I hate James Franklin. I think he's a used car salesman and a fraud. It's been proven time and time again. But their offensive coordinator had a game plan that was interesting and creative and changing. They had multiple, like the whole game was trick plays and lineup things, and it worked. And they still barely won. Penn State's a fraud. That's my thought there. For Ohio State, Ryan Day, he's 1-5 against top 5 schools, and his team's always top 5. So he's 1-5 in 50-50 games. He's a fraud.
Yeah. Real quick on Ryan Day, and this is Coach Adams now. Time and score. Mike and I are in a group chat, and several of my former players are in there, and they haven't played for me, Mike, for 20 years. And what's the first thing they say in the group chat? We spend time on time and score. It was a priority at practice, and apparently at Ohio State, they don't spend time on time and score because that was one of the worst managed 2-minute drills with the victory right there. You got a chance to close with a touchdown, and it's mistake after mistake after mistake. So, yeah, you can beat all the bumps, but when you go head-to-head with good team against good team, 1-5 is what you are. And if that's okay for Ohio State, then that's okay for Ohio State. But that's a game you've got to win if you're elite. You've got elite talent. You got elite NIL. You cried for all of these things. And then we gave you whatever you asked for, and you didn't go to the pay window, to quote Gorilla Monsoon. So, all right, Mike, we're going to go to the Big 12. Good wins by Arizona State. Man, that kid was very excited after the win if you saw the post game. Iowa State keeps winning. BYU might be a problem. I saw their schedule for the rest of the season. You might have a problem with BYU. And Kansas State, good win against Colorado on the road. I didn't think anybody had a lackluster performance, but Utah had a bad loss. And to quote Cotton Man, they're a fraud. Any thoughts about the Big 12, sir?
Ohio State and BYU are, I hope only one of them gets in, because, again, I'd rather see more Big 10 and SEC schools than the second best team in the Big 12 losing by 30. But they're winning the games on the schedule, right? Like, in the end, if you got an easier schedule, lucky you, they're winning the games. And that's going to happen when we have 2 mega conferences. It's going to be these teams that we know they're frauds. I mean, they won 41-19 over Arizona. Great. Iowa State beat West Virginia by 12. Great. You know who could beat West Virginia by 12 and has in like the last 5 years? A Maryland type of team. That's the kind of team that beats West Virginia by 7-12. A Maryland team in the last few years that was like a 7-win bowl team. That's what, but Ohio State's ranked 11. Why? Because they're in this crap conference, because there's only 2 conferences. Not their fault. Congratulations, you're winning the ones in front of you. But I really hope the committee gets it right and decides one of these 2 schools gets in.
Yeah, and right now I'm looking at Arizona State because they've got 1 loss, Mike. At the end of the day, they're going to be in the top 25, and they're winning. Iowa State's winning, and they might even crack the top 10 because the teams in front of them lost. And is BYU still undefeated?
6-0.
Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, you might have some problems there, and K-State's in that boat too. So, all right, ACC, good win by Clemson. So, Clemson is unique because I think they're the best team in the ACC, but what does that mean? Because their first game was against Georgia, and their last game is going to be against South Carolina. And South Carolina is the middle of the road SEC team. And if they go in and beat Clemson, what does that say about the ACC? But also, good win by Georgia Tech, Louisville, Syracuse, keep it going. Lackluster performance by Pitt, but that's a top 25 team. But that's not a real top 25 team. And I don't know what happened with NC State, but they stink, to quote Tony Kornheiser. Any thoughts on the ACC, sir?
Clemson is the best of this crap conference. Unless you want to consider Notre Dame, who
No, they're an independent. They don't have to share
independent
money.
in the ACC. But Clemson's the best of this crap. They're going to get in. Then they have to hope they've figured it out after that week 1 debacle where they played a real team and showed who they were.
Yeah, and Miami's on a bye this week, I think.
Yeah. So Miami's the only other one. And again, like we talked about with Penn State, the Penn State refs, to the ACC's credit, they made sure Miami got that win so they can maybe have the hope of 2. But deep down, we all know the 5th best team in the SEC or the 6th best team in the SEC is probably better than the 2nd best team in the ACC. The 4th or 5th best team in the Big Ten is probably better than the 2nd best team in the ACC. So I'm really truly fascinated what the committee's going to do. Like truly, because this year sets the precedent for this. This is a social studies people. This is Marbury versus Madison. This is going to set the precedent forever. And boy, they could really show their power here and say, you know what? We only care about our mega conferences. Or they could just say, the 2 teams that get in from the mega conferences are going to just have bye weeks against these crap schools. It's going to be fascinating.
And before we get to Notre Dame, young scholars, Marbury versus Madison established judicial review. So go ahead and do your homework on that one. Notre Dame, man, are they lucking up? Okay. They beat Stanford, and a lot of teams ahead of them keep losing. And here's what they have left. Georgia Tech, which should be a win. Navy might be ranked, and that's going to help, but you better beat Navy because they're not bums. And then Florida State, that means nothing, so you can't lose to them. Virginia is having a better season, but they just lost, so Virginia might have snuck in to 25, but now they're not sneaking in nowhere. Army is undefeated, and they're beating the brakes off people, so that might be a loss. And then they finish up with USC, who lost to Penn State. What are you thinking about Notre Dame as we close the segment?
I think Notre Dame is the best of all those teams you just named, so I think Notre Dame gets in, and then if they play a real school, they'll get beat. It's funny.
2-loss Notre Dame get in, though.
No, that's why I think they got to win out. I think they'll be favored in each one, but they got to win out. But like Virginia, yeah, they're 4-2. But they were winning in this one. They could have been 5-1. You know who their 1 loss is to at home? Maryland. Virginia's not good. Like we can't look at records anymore because these teams aren't good. Virginia's the 4th best team in the ACC, and they're worse than the 12th best team in the Big Ten. So records mean nothing, and that's what we have to start looking at: is if you have 1 loss, who's that 1 loss to? Did you play anyone in a real conference? Like we do in basketball, you lost by 20 to this school. You lost, like that stuff has to come into play. I think you played 1 team in the Big Ten, you beat them by 10, but everyone else in the Big Ten's beating them by 30. You suck.
Yeah. All right, fans. In segment 2, we will go group of 5 and continue to have this conversation because there's only one group of 5 team coming in. We've got to figure out who's got the inside track. Be right back on the iCoaches Podcast. This is Dr. Keith Adams, president of the CKA Safe Project, with a question for you. Are you passionate about supporting student athletes? If so, then become an official member of the CKA Safe Project and make a difference today. With your membership, you'll be able to help us provide essential academic and athletic support to underserved communities nationwide. Join us in empowering student athletes to achieve their full potential, both on and off the field. Together, we can build a brighter future through education and sports. Visit ckasafeproject.org and choose your membership level now. $25 is a bronze level membership, $50 is a silver level membership, and $100 is a gold level membership. Be a part of the change. Become a member of the CKA Safe Project today. Welcome back to the iCoaches Podcast in segment 2. Let's go group of 5. Mike and the American Army doing it. Give them the credit that they deserve. They're beating people badly. Now, again, I don't know who they're playing, but you only can play who's in front of you. Memphis got to win, and strictly for entertainment purposes only, North Texas got to win. No bad losses. Army and Navy and the American seem to be the only ones with an inside track. And that last game, Army-Navy, doesn't count because I think everything would have been set by then. What are you thinking about the American, Mike?
I think Army's the one that has a chance with that game against Notre Dame, where if they beat Notre Dame in how many weeks is that? What we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. So November 23rd, 7 p.m. NBC. Everyone's going to be watching if they're still undefeated. So you got a 9-0 Army team, and if it's a 1-loss Notre Dame team, and they could put it on them, I think Army has to be in this thing. And that's where it's going to get interesting because there's other undefeated teams who will also potentially, if they have good wins or really good losses, have to be in this thing. And then that's where the ACC is getting one. That's where the Big 12 is getting one because there's a chance there's more than one school that gets in. And Army has the schedule in front of them where they'll have the quality win if they, do what they have to do.
Yeah, and that takes us to the Mountain West Pac-2 because Boise won, and Boise's got a carrot.
Mm-hmm.
Boise's got a ratings guy, and they're winning, but they have to keep winning. So good win by Boise. UNLV, who plays Boise soon. New Mexico, I hate you, Robert. Because my ticket is blown up, and Washington State. Bad loss by Oregon State. And what happened to Air Force? What happened? Now, again, I'm not saying you were supposed to be good, but you've got Army and Navy killing it, and Air Force just getting boat raced every week. Any thoughts about the Mountain West, Pac-2? And yeah, man, Boise's on our mind.
If Boise wins out, Boise's in because their one loss is a 3-point loss to a team that just beat your top 5 team, right? Like at Oregon. So if you lose by 3 at Oregon, then on a neutral field or at home, you're probably the favorite or beating them, right? Like based on how odds makers do that stuff. So Boise State should be in, and they've got the must-watch player in college football, which that gives you a little.
That matters.
Matters. So
I know they won't say it matters, Mike.
Yeah, but it matters.
But it matters.
We saw it matter because last year when Florida State, when the quarterback was hurt, they said, "Well, you're not good enough because you don't have that guy that we want. That's good. They've got that guy that's good. So if he gets hurt now and they're one-loss team, precedent set, Boise State doesn't get in. But if he's healthy, they should be in. If Army wins out, they should be in. That's 2. So as we go through this, that's 2 where if they win out, I don't think anyone would argue that they shouldn't be in.
All right. Conference USA. Now, Conference USA is playing the during the week game so they can get on TV at a decent hour. So Liberty won, and their next game is Wednesday, so they would have already played by the time this airs on Thursday. Jacksonville State, Rich Rod is doing his thing. Louisiana Tech got a win, and go Western Kentucky. Nobody had a bad loss, but again, they've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday games moving forward until the end of the season. Again, is this just Liberty, or is there anybody else to talk about in Conference USA, Mike?
So it's just Liberty, but I look at Liberty's schedule and I say if they go undefeated, they don't deserve to be in. So you scheduled bums, and you didn't beat them by enough. So that's on you. I'm looking at this 41-24 over Campbell. Unless that said 410-24 over Campbell, that's not enough. I didn't even know Campbell had a football team.
Hey, FCS.
New Mexico State, you beat by 6. You beat East Carolina by 11. You beat FIU by 7 at home. None of these are They're just not impressive. Any of them. So who do you got left? Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, MTSU.
Yeah, and Rich Rod can beat him.
Yeah, but even Massachusetts, Western Kentucky, Sam Houston. There's not one win on that schedule where you're going to go, that win is better than Boise State's 3-point loss at Oregon. Yes. There's nothing. You can win by 100 in any of those games, and Boise State's 3-point loss is more impressive. So I don't think there's any way Liberty gets in unless a lot of teams lose to bumps.
All right. Sunbelt, good wins. JMU, ODU, Louisiana Monroe, Texas State, and Louisiana with good wins. Bad losses. App State. What happened to App State? I'm not understanding, man. They used to be good. It's just a bad year. Any thoughts on the Sun Belt?
I mean, JMU, they had the chance and they blew it. So good win. Coastal Carolina is a good team. They were 4-1 heading into the game, and you whooped them. You already blew it. You had your chance. Like, if you're not in the Big Ten or SEC, you don't get that leeway. Sorry, you're not in the discussion.
Not at all. All right, MAC, good wins. Ball State, Kent State, Miami, Western Michigan. Thanks for waking up. We'll talk about that in segment 3. Northern Illinois and Ohio. Bad loss by Toledo. Any MACtion for you, Mike?
I like Northern Illinois. They've historically had these little tough teams, in Ohio. So yeah, they're all doing solid, but there's no one even in it. They're all 2 losses, and we're talking about Big Ten.
The Motor City Bowl is waiting for you.
Yeah.
All right, and then my weekly HBCU check-in. Good wins. Tennessee State, North Carolina Central. Mike, they won 68-0. All right, so I don't know who you scheduled, but good scheduling if you won 68-0. Howard, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Alabama State, Alcorn State, and Southern. Bad loss is Dell State, and the reason why it's a bad loss, they got shut out by Robert Morris. Robert Morris shouldn't be shutting you out. And Morgan State lost to Merrimack. We got to beat them if you want to get a better transfer portal, guys. So in segment 3, we'll talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only, and I was not entertained. We'll be right back on the Yacht Coaches podcast. This is Dr. Keith Adams, president of the CKA Save Project and author of Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. This book is your key to unlocking the secrets of being a successful student athlete. Drawing from my 30-year career as a teacher and coach, this instructional guide offers a unique perspective on achieving success in both academics and athletics. With over 15 personal stories and insightful antidotes, Finding the Balance is a must-read for student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators. Visit www.ckasaveproject.org to get your copy and start finding the balance today. Welcome back to the Yacht Coaches podcast. That is segment 3. I love this guy. Segment 3, we're going to do our ranking. And I'm glad I got Mike on because Mike will call me out if I'm not doing this right. So fans, remember, the OCP only cares about the playoff. Everything else is for you guys to talk about at the water cooler and so forth. So conference champions, Texas is currently going to win the SEC. Of course, it could change, but that's 1. Oregon is 2, and they should run the table. They should. Looking at their schedule, they should run the table. 3 is Clemson because Miami is shaky, and since that opening loss, Clemson's just been beating people and going home and not saying anything. Now, again, I'm really looking at that last game with South Carolina, but that's not a conference game. So that's just me checking if they can play against somebody decent. 4, the Big 12 is open, but right now I got Iowa State winning in a week-to-week battle with BYU because BYU's schedule is unique. And if BYU makes it to the championship, Mike brings up officiating. I'm not saying, but BYU has a very large following. nationally. There we go. And Boise State has the carrot. They've got that one loss. That's a great one loss. But UNLV and Oregon State, they got it. They're in the way. So then the next 7, and you're only taking 7 more. That's all you're taking. Ohio State's in if they win out and then win the Big Ten championship against Oregon, get their payback win like we do in wrestling. And now both of them can go, and there might be a wink, wink finisher, small package. And now we both got the East Coast and West Coast kind of sort of, if you believe in conspiracy theories, social studies teacher. Now, Alabama and Georgia are 7 and 8, but Alabama better keep winning, and they don't look good right now. And Georgia didn't look good to the end, and they got Texas. But if they beat Texas, that's a better win than Alabama beating them. And then Penn State. Okay, Robert, I love you. Yes, they're a fraud. Mike's already here to tell me that. But I get sucked in every year with Coach Franklin and his speech about being good to great. But they're not very good. And then Miami. Will the ACC get that second team in? I don't know if a 2-loss ACC team is going to get in. And then BYU's hanging around. Will they give us 2 Big 12 teams? I don't know. And Notre Dame is 12, just hanging around, and they've got a shot. And then on the outside looking in, yes, Mike, believe it or not, SMU has 1 loss, and they got a shot to mess up everything. Tennessee, if they can beat Alabama, they got a shot. Utah's done. I did that early. So give me somebody else in the Big 12. You can pick them. And Indiana's hanging around, just hanging around, beating people and being quiet. And then for the group of 5 spot, we talked about it earlier, Army, Navy, and the American. If they keep winning, they have a shot, because when they play each other will be after all of this is done. And then that would be the 1 loss, kind of. And both of them play Notre Dame. So that would be a good opportunity. Any thoughts on my rankings, sir?
So I look at a team like Indiana, who's undefeated, and you look at their schedule. If they beat Michigan, which they can do because Michigan isn't good, and then they lose to Ohio State. Let's say they win one of those. Let's say they beat Michigan, they lose to Ohio State. They're a 1-loss team at the end of the year. Penn State and Oregon play in the Big Ten championship. Do you not put in a 1-loss Indiana team who didn't get that Big Ten championship to prove themselves? Because I was thinking about this, like when this whole thing came up as a fan of a school like Maryland. You're almost better off being a 1-loss team who doesn't get into the championship to be proven to be a fraud than you are Indiana gets in undefeated, plays Oregon, Oregon beats them by 40. 1 loss, you lost by 40, you had your chance, you blew it.
Because if you're 5, you're playing 12, and that's a group of 5 team, and boom, now you played, and then they had a week off. Yes, I'm with you.
You had your chance in the Big Ten championships to prove it. But if Indiana plays Ohio State, they lose by like 10, whatever, something like that. They don't get into the Big Ten championship. I think they have to be in. So if they get in, and Ohio State in this scenario is not the Big Ten championship, they're in. Now you got 4 Big Ten schools that legitimately should be in. I don't know how they're going to do it. Like, there's a lot of like weird scenarios in the SEC.
Yeah, we got to check out the tie-breaking system in an upcoming episode just to share with our audience. But we'll let it get more muddled first.
Outside that I'm like, Indiana and Army are my team on your outside that I go. There's a chance they both have a good case to get in.
Yeah, and again in a future episode, we'll let the couple of weeks get a little muddled. And then we'll break down the tiebreakers. Season-long bets, Georgia and Missouri. They keep winning, and we got about 6 games left, so I got a shot with those 2. Maryland over 6.5. They got 3 wins with 6 games left. I don't think I have a shot anymore.
No chance.
Oregon, they got the win, even though I'm kind of mad at them. So I think I got a shot with that. Big 12, Colorado lost, but they play well. I got no problem with their loss, and I think they're going to get over 5.5, so I'll lose that bet, but I'm no worries. But Utah, I'm done because I was not expecting them to lose to Arizona State. North Carolina State, I'm done. They're terrible. But SMU, I was good to back them early, and I think they can get the 4 wins to get over 8.5. Notre Dame over 10.5. That's shaky because they're at 5 wins with 6 games left. And I'm looking at Army, I'm looking at Navy, I'm looking at USC, and let that be the game that Florida State, puts it together. By the way, did Florida State switch their quarterback yet? I don't know. All right, I got UMass under 3.5. They've got 1 win with 5 games left. Mike, Mississippi State, Liberty, Georgia, UConn, Wagner. I'm feeling good about that one, pal.
That looks good.
Feeling good about that one. Memphis over 9.5, 6 games left. They're at 5 wins. At least I got a shot. USF, South Florida, I do not have a shot. They've got 2 wins. We've lost that one, but in the tradition of Petty Mike King, UAB, 1 win, 6 games left. I got the under because I don't like Trent Dilfer. And that's the only reason why I picked them, because I don't like how he talked about people. So, all right, Boise State's over 9. We've got 5 wins. Or is it 6 now? I think it's 5. All right. 6 games left. Feeling good about that one. New Mexico won, so that is done for the season. We'll be not bringing that up again. Liberty over 10.5. They got 6 games left because they're not going to redo the App State game, which they would have won looking at App State. FIU over 4. They got 2 with 6 games left. I got a shot. Texas State over 8.5. 4 wins, 6 games left. It doesn't look too good. I don't think that's going to work out for me, but we can try. Toledo keeps losing, and Western Michigan over 6.5. They got 3 wins with 6 games left. In terms of my weekly bets, Mike, I was 1-6 this week, 22-27 overall. My showcase game, K-State minus 3.5. I think they only won by 3. Rats. 2-play. Iowa minus 2.5. Pittsburgh minus 3.5. Iowa took care of business. Pitt didn't. They won by like 2. 3-play. Wisconsin took care of business. Iowa State took care of business. Ohio State blew it at the end. And I was right there with that. 4-play. Penn State, Ohio State, Memphis, and North Texas. 3 out of 4 doesn't get you to the pay window. My 1 win was Stanford, and Notre Dame went over 45.5. So they took care of that. My under game was Clemson, Wake Forest. I had them under 62.5. Those jokers scored 63. And my upset, San Jose State couldn't get the win. Did you do anything strictly for entertainment purposes only this week, sir?
Not this week.
Okay. We got a show to do, so we were going to keep grinding. Week 8 game of notes. We now have games 6 days a week. Oklahoma State travels to BYU Friday. South Carolina plays Oklahoma. Nebraska plays Indiana. When did you think that was going to be a game that we got to lock in on? Because we got to lock in on that. Kansas State travels to WVU. Strange things happen in Morgantown. UCLA travels across the country to Rutgers for a conference game. Colorado plays Arizona, both of them coming off losses. UNLV against Oregon State. Miami against Louisville. Louisville hadn't been playing well, but Miami has to travel to Louisville. Virginia against Clemson. Do they have a shot? Alabama against Tennessee. Notre Dame against Georgia Tech. Michigan against Illinois. Does Michigan take another loss? NC State against Cal. Again, NC State's traveling to California for a conference game. I didn't book it. Charlotte's playing Navy. Charlotte's playing better. USC is playing Maryland for a homecoming. Are you going to homecoming, sir?
Yes, I will be there, and I do not think this will go well.
All right. LSU against Arkansas, and of course, the big one, Georgia versus Texas. What has caught your eye going into week 8?
I mean, I feel like the worst game on this one is the one that's interesting to me is UCLA Rutgers, because a lot of media people had Rutgers as this is the year. And if you looked at the schedule that the Big Ten gave them, preseason, their second toughest game was Maryland. That was their second least likely game to win. They had a gift of a schedule where they got to avoid everybody. I didn't know it was possible to avoid Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, all of them. They avoided all of them. And the fans, if you were following on social media, were furious after that Wisconsin beatdown, because again, Rutgers was 4-0 and starting to get like oh, they're going to be ranked in whatever. And now they're 4-2 and they look dreadful.
And they look bad in that loss. They look bad in that loss.
And if their schedule is this year, it's only going to get worse. They're not going to be given gifts. You only get the gifts so often. You got to take advantage of the gifts. And they didn't. So if they lose to a bad UCLA team, it'll be interesting to see the talk about their coach. Because with Maryland, people talk about Loxley, even though he's won 3 straight bowl games. For the first time in program history, people are bringing his name up this year. How is Schiano surviving 52-7 at home to average teams in a year where you're supposed to make a run?
Yeah, the Maryland thing gets me because I live a stone's throw away. Mike and I both teach in a local school system. The majority of our kids go to Maryland. Mm-hmm. So when Mike goes on campus, hey, Mr. King, mm-hmm. You're going to see a bunch of that. And selfishly, I root for Mike. Mm-hmm. He's a good person. He has cleaned up a lot, but now it's on the field. Mm-hmm. We've got it. Route 1 is bustling. You got the Big Ten contract coming in. And now when the whistle blows, you're losing games that you got to win. Now, again, nobody said go undefeated. Nobody said you got to be 10 wins and competing. But when the smart kids start to beat you, to quote the kid, that's when you got to worry, because you let a non-athletic team beat you at your place. So I will be watching homecoming for selfish reasons. But again, I appreciate having our team leader here with us. Good show today. So on behalf of Mr. King, just saying that every day, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast. And we'll see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach Franchize. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.